presentation is really to provide you with an overview of what is the political momentum around digital identity and how important it is for mobile operators to get into the space of identity as well. So this is a broad a map of all the initiatives that are currently ongoing around the world, probably not all of them. But what is important is that many governments and intergovernmental forum and other stakeholders are converging around identity as a concept, as a political concept. But at the same time, they're having a lot of enthusiasm around the technology. So I'm here just to introduce some of the excellent speakers that we are going to have later. So across the world, the National Institute of Standard Technology in the US has launched in 2011 the National Strategy for Identity in the Cyberspace. And I probably missed the proper acronym. The United Nations is working with the UNCITRAL on a global law for commerce. The European Commission in 2014 launched the first and only regulatory framework across the world about electronic identification and trust services for electronic transaction in the digital single market. The United Kingdom, through the Digital Assurance Program, they are also very active in this space. And the World Bank, not least, is also leading an important initiatives around digital identity for the unregistered. One of the common objectives really to work towards common principles and shared principles around identity. And there seems to be quite a lot of convergence about those particular issues of security, scalability, convenience, and privacy. But why there is all this such great momentum? So there are three particular areas where digital identity can really add value in terms of economic growth. The first one is really into unlocking the potential of the digital economy in terms of e-government services. There are a number of studies that have addressed the potential and the economics opportunity in terms of cost savings that can be realized by the governments in actually implementing digital identity strategies. Boston Consulting Group 2 years ago estimated that by 2020 there would be $50 billion saved, enabled by digital identity. And in 2014 and 15, the United Kingdom has actually saved $2.5 billion through digital technology transformation, and 52 million of those were related to the gov.uk Verify online portal of digital identity for government services in the UK. The second area, which is also one of the key focus areas of Mobile Connect, is really about the importance of trust and how to really encourage citizens and users to take into account how privacy is relevant into the personal data economy, but how it's relevant to the identity of individuals. And that is why Mobile Connect is trying to design for privacy, take into account the importance of privacy and the consumer's expectations around uncertainty around identity theft, but also the willingness to have and the strong will to have perhaps in the future more understanding of the use of their personal data online and the risk that they are occurring every day while exposing their identities online. And the third area is really the one that the World Bank is focusing, and with which we are also working on a shared consultation document around the shared principles, and is about enabling digital inclusions and how digital identity can be considered as a source of identification and an opportunity for digital inclusion. So there are 1.5 billion registered people around the world, which are socially and economically and politically excluded from rights, but also to services. Those are disproportionately located into Africa and Asian countries. So this is both a social responsibility, but also an opportunity from a commercial standpoint of the mobile operators and other private sector players to stand up and realize the adjacent business opportunity that can be realized. So with these slides, I just try to provide with an overview of the four sort of buckets that exist currently around digital identity. You could argue that there could be more, there could be less, but essentially there are two areas. The one that are more commercially driven, and model number one is the one driven by the large internet players, which really assert their identity. It's a self-assertive authentication framework. And the second area, which is being enabled by the government, but really much driven by the market players and the private sector, very much important in the Nordic regions, but also in some Asian countries where mobile operators, like for example in the Finnish case, they come together into a circle of trust and provided services both for the public and private sector within the digital identity ecosystem. So, and the third model, it's a multi-channel infrastructure digital identity model based on national EID scheme. And the fourth one, it's about open ID attribute exchange or verified attributes, which are more of the common sort of Commonwealth, we can argue, sort of approaches. So we believe the Mobile Connect has the reach and flexibility to really integrate into all of those existing models, but the willing is really to go into model 2, 3, and 4. So this provide a high-level roadmap of what are the opportunities and the needs, in particular for government use cases, whereby Mobile Connect today is launched and has got a particular focus on authentication, with the need and possibility to step up already today in two-factor authentication, including an array of different authenticators. They could be biometrics as well, and going to the area of attributes and digital identification via more sophisticated digital certificates. But I think one of the areas that is interesting, which is also a reflection of what's happening at political level, the national and the regulatory framework, is how it would be possible to create a positive virtuous circle between soft identity, hard identity, and enable the mobile operators to actually be the complementary provider of attributes to the unique identity identifiers provided by the governments. So just to summarize briefly, so in general terms, of course, I mean, the multi-stakeholders approach, I think it's encouraged, but of course, mobile operators are the one that we believe have got the most and best opportunity to provide their services and to grab the opportunity of digital identity. There are multiple reasons. Most importantly, it's about a simple user experience, the possibility to provide access to government services, the outspoken privacy focus, and potential to be the trustworthy partners of governments and provide scale interoperability at the international level. So this ends my presentation. And I hope it creates a linkage as well to Mariana's presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And actually, I'm going to just make a very brief comment to this excellent presentation. And thank you very much for explaining us all and very impressive progress of Mobile Connect. At the World Bank, I'm coordinating the Identification for Development agenda. As Marta mentioned, it's a global agenda that we've launched in 2014. And it's still a nascent area for us. We try to understand the dynamics, the different players. We try to partner to build meaningful partnerships and alliances in this space. And also launch a multi-stakeholder platform for funding operations and interventions in client countries. I'll tell a little bit more about it. Just want to emphasize a couple of points that Marta mentioned. Specifically, at the World Bank, we indeed look after the 1.5 billion people who today are unable to prove their identity. So we not necessarily talk about digital identity only. It can also be a paper-based identity document that they don't have. So there could be indeed room for leapfrogging to more advanced technologies, technology-enabled identities, so mobile identity, digital identity. We look at these opportunities as well so that these people can access the basic services and rights. We also are aligned with the Sustainable Development Goal that, as you know, the 2030 Agenda has been launched last September, and there is a target specifically stating that the global community should provide legal identity, including birth registration, by 2030 to everyone. And I know that the mobile operators have conducted a series of very successful pilots of registering births in remote areas in Africa using mobile phones. So all of these 21st century solutions are very appealing, and we'll look at this on how can we bring that to scale as well so that we close the gap of unregistered by 2030 or earlier. We also think that this agenda can contribute to improved service delivery and really gaining efficiency in government services. So some key points, data points, Marta mentioned the potential savings by 2020 if every government would go digital using digital ID-enabled services. We would probably save globally $50 billion a year. And we would, for example, provide access to financial services to the 375 million people who are lacking them today because they are unable to prove their identity. So you can see just on one example how efficient can it be to make investments in this area. And the World Bank is partnering with client governments to raise awareness, to conduct advocacy, and also to support operations and projects in the countries. But we do realize that governments alone cannot do it. Private sector alone probably cannot do it either. So there is really a need for a multi-stakeholder approach in this multidimensional area. And we try to understand first how it works. What is the ecosystem comprised of? So together with GSMA, Secure Identity Alliance, and a couple of other partners, specifically think tanks like Center for Global Development, and the number of these partners is growing, we try to conduct analytical work and advance thought leadership in this area, and we try to map out what are the specific roles of the private sector, of the public sector, and where is the value that each of these stakeholders can bring into this value chain. So just yesterday. My memory is failing, but we've launched a consultation process around a draft report that we have produced over a couple of months, and this is something ongoing. We are going to continue these consultations to understand the landscape and the value chain constitution with key stakeholders around the entire life cycle of digital identity, from issuance to authentication and then service delivery. So I'm sure you'll be a part of this. If not, please reach out to us so that we include your feedback, your comments, and your inputs, because it's really important to us to understand. We have a vision which is making everyone count. As I mentioned, we want to support progress towards providing identification systems that use 21st century technologies. So mobile is obviously front and center, but they could be other technologies as well which can advance this agenda, with the objective to enable access to services and rights to all. So thought leadership, global convening, country and regional engagements is something that we want to build together and conduct together. We want to have this multi-stakeholder engagement and partnership platform that is based on expertise, knowledge, and funding. So we look to all of this, and please reach out to us. We are more than happy. I have here some World Bank colleagues, the program manager, I cannot see, Vaijanti. Oh, here you are. So please come and see us, and we will be very happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.